What if the most terrifying secret of World War II was never a weapon you could see? Not a tank, not a bomber, not even a rocket, but something hidden deep underground, something shaped like a bell. A project so secret that even many Nazi officials never knew it existed. A machine surrounded by whispers of impossible technology, missing scientists, destroyed documents, and one man who vanished without a trace. Tonight, we enter one of the darkest unsolved mysteries of World War II, the legend of Die Glocke, the bell. By 1944, Nazi Germany was collapsing. The Allies were closing in from the west, the Soviet army was crushing through the east, and the Third Reich was desperate. And desperation creates obsession. Hitler and his inner circle believed Germany needed something beyond ordinary weapons, something that could change the course of the war overnight, a miracle, a breakthrough, a wonder weapon. The Germans called them Wunderwaffen, and some were real. The V-2 rockets, the first jet fighters, experimental submarines. But according to rumors, there was something even deeper, something hidden from the world, something not meant to be understood. The story of Die Glocke does not come from official Nazi archives with clear photographs and signed blueprints. It comes from fragments, whispers, testimonies, and one controversial Polish researcher named Igor Witkowski, who claimed he gained access to classified interrogation transcripts of an SS officer. In those pages, he said, there was mention of a strange device, heavy, metallic, shaped like a bell, known only by a code name, Die Glocke, the bell. And here's what makes it so haunting. No complete blueprint has ever been found. No confirmed photograph exists. No surviving machine has ever been displayed. Only stories and silence. According to the legend, Die Glocke was not a normal weapon. It was described as a massive bell-shaped object, roughly the size of a small car, made of dense metal with strange internal components. Inside were two cylinders rotating in opposite directions, and the machine was supposedly filled with a mysterious violet, mercury-like liquid sometimes called Serum 525. No one knows what that substance truly was or if it ever existed, but the rumors around it are chilling. Some claimed the bell was an energy device, others believed it was an anti-gravity experiment, and the most extreme theories suggested it was connected to time itself. But the darkest part of the story is what supposedly happened during the tests. Witness accounts claim early experiments were catastrophic. Animals exposed to the machine reportedly died instantly. Plants withered. Blood supposedly turned strange colors. The air became toxic. Test areas were said to be contaminated, and scientists and technicians may have been killed during failures. If any of this is true, Die Glocke was not just dangerous to Germany's enemies, it was dangerous to its creators, and that raises an unsettling question. What kind of experiment could cause such terrifying effects? Was it radiation, electromagnetic forces, chemical contamination, or simply exaggerated myth growing over time? We do not know, but every great secret has someone guarding it, and in the mystery of Die Glocke, one name appears again and again, SS General Hans Kammler. Kammler was not a scientist, but he was something far more powerful, an organizer, an engineer of secrecy, a man who oversaw underground facilities and Germany's most classified weapons programs. He was linked to the V-2 rocket project, hidden factories, and special operations that never reached the battlefield. If Die Glocke existed, Kammler would have been the man controlling it. And his story ends in one of the strangest disappearances of the entire war. The bell's often connected to a mysterious underground construction effort in occupied Poland known as Project Riese, meaning giant. This was a vast network of tunnels, bunkers, and chambers carved into the Owl Mountains. Even today, historians debate what it was truly for. A new Führer headquarters, underground factories, secret laboratories, or something else entirely? Near these tunnels stands an eerie concrete ring-like structure, sometimes called the Henge, and some believe it may have been a testing platform for Glocke. But once again, there is no final proof, only speculation, strange architecture, and unanswered questions. As the war ended, the Nazis destroyed enormous amounts of evidence. Documents were burned, facilities were blown up, and scientists either fled or were captured. And then Hans Kammler vanished. Officially, he died in May 1945, but no confirmed body was ever found. No grave, no undeniable conclusion. Some theories claim he surrendered to the Americans. Others say he was killed to keep secrets buried forever. And the wildest theories suggest he escaped with technology too dangerous to leave behind. Because if Glocke was real, would any world power allow it to simply disappear? After the war, the United States launched Operation Paperclip, a program designed to capture German scientists and bring them to America before the Soviets could. The Soviet Union did the same. The Cold War began almost immediately, and suddenly, the most dangerous knowledge on Earth became a prize. Could Glocke have been part of that race? Was it hidden, transported, rebuilt in secret? Or was it only a legend born from fear, desperation, and the chaos of the war's final days? Historians remain skeptical, and many believe Glocke is a post-war myth, a conspiracy story built around real Nazi experimentation, but stretched into something supernatural. Possible explanations include advanced centrifuge research, early nuclear-related work, chemical weapon experiments, or electromagnetic propulsion ideas. Or perhaps it was simply a rumor that grew larger with every retelling. But even if Glocke was not a time machine or an anti-gravity craft, the fact that we still debate it shows something powerful. World War II still holds secrets, and some shadows never fully disappear. So we are left with the haunting final question. Was Glocke a real Nazi superweapon, a failed experiment buried underground, a Cold War trophy taken by the victors, or the greatest myth of the Second World War? Maybe the truth is locked away in classified archives. Maybe it was destroyed forever. But one thing is certain. Somewhere between history and legend, the bell still echoes. And we're still listening. Imagine you are a German commander in France, late 1944. The night is cold. You hear engines rumbling in the distance. You see tanks lined up near the forest. You spot camps, trucks, artillery positions. Everything looks real. Your officers panic. They send urgent messages to Berlin. The Americans are preparing a massive attack right here. Divisions are moved. Defensive lines are reinforced. Everyone waits for the storm. But here is the terrifying truth. That army does not exist. Those tanks are not steel. Those soldiers are not thousands. It is all an illusion. One of the strangest and most brilliant secret operations of World War II has begun. The story of the Ghost Army. Officially, it was called the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. It was not a normal combat unit. These men were not trained to win battles by firing bullets. They were trained to win battles by creating lies so convincing that the enemy would bet everything on them. Their mission was simple but revolutionary. Deceive the Germans on a massive scale, confuse their intelligence, and save real lives by making the enemy fight shadows. The Ghost Army was created in 1944 under the command of the Allied Supreme Headquarters. The United States realized that war was not only fought with tanks and soldiers, but with information, fear, and misdirection. If you could make the enemy believe you were attacking in one place, you could strike somewhere else. And in a war as deadly as World War II, even a single mistake could cost thousands of lives. What made this unit so unusual was the type of people inside it. The Ghost Army was filled with artists, designers, sound engineers, radio experts, and even actors. Men who, in another life, would have been painting in studios or designing advertisements, were now building the greatest battlefield illusion of the century. Some of them later became famous in American culture. But during the war, they were soldiers of deception. Their first weapon was visual trickery. The Ghost Army used inflatable tanks, trucks, artillery, and even airplanes. Yes, giant rubber machines that could be inflated in minutes. From the ground, they might look suspicious. But from the air, where German reconnaissance planes watched constantly, they looked absolutely real. Entire fake armored divisions could appear overnight. Немецкие пилоты фотографировали позиции и докладывали, "There is a major American force here." But in reality, it was air and rubber. They didn't stop at tanks. They built fake camps, palatki, sklady, shtabe. They created tracks in the dirt to make it seem like heavy vehicles had been moving through the area for days. They lit fires. They arranged equipment perfectly. Every detail was designed to convince enemy spies in Razvedku that a huge invasion force was gathering. But perhaps the most terrifying weapon was sound. The Ghost Army carried massive loudspeakers, some of the most powerful ever used in warfare. At night, they played recordings of real military movements, tank engines, marching troops, metal clanking, officers shouting orders, bridges being built. German soldiers miles away could hear it. In the darkness, it sounded like an unstoppable army approaching. Fear spread through the enemy lines because sound is harder to doubt than sight. You can close your eyes, but you cannot stop hearing war coming. Then came radio deception. The Ghost Army had skilled signal operators who could imitate the communications of entire divisions. They created fake radio traffic, sending messages back and forth exactly like a real army would. German intelligence intercepted these signals and began building maps of troop movements, all based on lies. Entire German defensive strategies were shaped by conversations that were completely invented, and the deception went even deeper. The soldiers themselves became performers. They would travel to nearby towns wearing different unit patches, pretending to be part of large forces. They spoke loudly in cafes. They dropped hints. They let rumors spread, knowing that spies were listening. A careless sentence like, "Our division attacks next week," could travel straight into German reports. This was psychological warfare at its finest. The Ghost Army's greatest impact came after D-Day, during the Allied push across France. Germany was desperate to know where the next major order would come. The Ghost Army created fake concentrations of troops, drawing German divisions away from real front-of-the operations. They made the enemy chase ghosts, while real Allied soldiers advanced elsewhere. In one operation, a few hundred men convinced the Germans that tens of thousands of troops were preparing an assault. Think about that. A tiny unit of artists and engineers could move entire enemy armeeski corps simply by creating illusions. Every time the Germans moved the wrong way, real American lives were saved. The danger was enormous. If the Germans discovered the deception, the Ghost Army would be defenseless. Inflatable tanks cannot shoot back. Loudspeakers cannot stop bullets. These men often operated dangerously close to the front, relying on secrecy and speed. They had to set up their illusions quickly, perform their deception, and исчезнуть before the enemy realized the truth. After the war ended, the story of the Ghost Army disappeared into silence. Their missions were classified. The soldiers returned home and were forbidden to speak about what they had done. For decades, the world had no idea that one of the most creative military units in history had existed. Only many years later did the United States finally reveal the truth. The Ghost Army was real. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops had carried out more than 20 major deception operations in Europe. They had fooled German commanders again and again. And they had proven something neverojatne about war. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a gun, but an illusion. The Ghost Army reminds us that World War II was not only a clash of armies, but a battle of minds. In the shadows of Europe, while millions fought and died, a small group of men fought with rubber tanks, fake radio messages, and soundtracks of war, and they changed history without firing a single shot. And the most chilling part is this. Somewhere on a battlefield in 1944, German soldiers prepared to face an American army that was never there because they were fighting ghosts. The Enigma machine was more than just a box of wires and rotors. To the German military, it was the invisible shield of the Third Reich, the lock that kept every order, every submarine position, every battle plan safe from enemy ears. Before the war even began, Germany understood something that many nations still underestimated. Information was power. If your enemy could not read your messages, you could move armies like ghosts across the map. You could strike without warning. You could coordinate fleets and divisions while your opponents remained blind. That was the promise of Enigma. It was a cipher device that turned plain language into nonsense, a storm of letters that meant nothing unless you possessed the exact settings of the day. Every morning, German operators received new code books. The machine was reset, the rotors were rearranged, the plugboard connections were changed, and suddenly, yesterday's key was useless. The Nazis believed the system was perfect. They believed no human mind, no machine, no enemy intelligence service could ever break through. And at first, they were right. The complexity was terrifying. Enigma could generate more possible combinations than there were atoms in the universe. To a normal observer, it was impossible. But war has always been full of impossible challenges, and somewhere in Europe, long before Britain's famous codebreakers became legends, the first cracks in Enigma's armor began to appear. The earliest heroes of this story were not British at all. They were Polish mathematicians working in secrecy during the 1930s, when Germany was already preparing for conflict. Poland sat in the shadow of a growing monster, and Polish intelligence knew that if war came, they would be the first to be crushed. They intercepted German messages and realized what they were facing. Instead of relying only on traditional spies, Poland turned to mathematics. Young cryptologists like Marian Rejewski began analyzing Enigma not as a mystery, but as a logical system. Step by step, they reconstructed how it worked. They built early devices to help break it. And in one of the most important acts of cooperation in modern history, just before the war erupted, the Polish shared their discoveries with Britain and France. They handed over the foundations of Enigma breaking, knowing that their own country might not survive, but the fight against Germany had to continue. When Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, the world plunged into war, and the responsibility of cracking Enigma shifted westward to Britain, where a secret location would soon become the nerve center of the hidden conflict. That place was Bletchley Park. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary countryside estate, quiet, almost peaceful. But behind its walls, thousands of people would work day and night, racing against time, because every unread message meant ships sunk in the Atlantic, soldiers ambushed in North Africa, cities bombed without warning. Bletchley Park became a factory of intelligence, and among the people drawn, there was a young mathematician whose mind seemed built for puzzles that others could not even imagine. His name was Alan Turing. Turing was not a typical soldier. He was awkward, intensely focused, often lost in thought, but his brilliance was extraordinary. He understood that Enigma could not be broken by hand, not in time. The Germans were sending thousands of messages every day. Even if you found a possible key, it would be useless tomorrow. The Allies needed speed. They needed automation. They needed a machine to fight a machine. And so Turing helped design one of the most important inventions of the war, the bomb. The bomb was not a single magical device that instantly revealed German secrets. It was a powerful electromechanical system designed to test Enigma settings at incredible speed. It exploited small weaknesses in German procedure, tiny human habits that slipped into even the most secure system. Because no code is broken purely by mathematics. Codes are broken by people. Operators repeated phrases. They used predictable openings. They made mistakes. And those mistakes became the entry points. Each day at Bletchley, the race began anew. Intercepted messages arrived in piles. Analysts searched for cribs, likely words or phrases hidden inside the ciphertext. The bomb machines roared, clicking relentlessly as they tested combinations. Hours passed, sometimes days, and always the fear remained. If the key was not found quickly enough, the information would arrive too late to matter. But when success came, it was like opening the enemy's mind. Suddenly, the Allies could read German naval orders, troop movements, supply plans. It was intelligence so valuable that it was given a name, Ultra. Ultra was the secret that could not be spoken aloud. Even Allied commanders were not always told where it came from. Because if Germany ever suspected Enigma was compromised, they would change everything, and the advantage would vanish overnight. So the Allies had to play a dangerous double game. They could not act too obviously on the information. They could not save every ship, stop every attack, because that would reveal the truth. Sometimes they had to allow tragedies to happen simply to protect the secret. Imagine the weight of that decision, knowing an enemy strike was coming, but being unable to fully prevent it without exposing the source. This was the cruel mathematics of war. Nowhere was the battle more desperate than in the Atlantic. German U-boats hunted Allied convoys like wolves. Britain depended on supplies crossing the ocean: food, weapons, fuel. If the U-boat succeeded, Britain could be starved into surrender. Enigma messages contained submarine positions, attack orders, patrol routes. Breaking those messages meant convoys could be rerouted, escorts could be sent, traps could be set. The invisible war of code-breaking became a direct weapon on the sea. Historians believe that ultra-intelligence was one of the key reasons the Allies won the Battle of the Atlantic. Without it, the lifeline across the ocean might have been cut, but Enigma was not static. The Germans upgraded it. They introduced more rotors, new procedures, increased complexity. Each improvement threatened to blind the Allies again. At times, Bletchley Park went dark, unable to read messages for weeks. Panic spread. Every blackout meant German operations could proceed unseen. The struggle was constant, a chess match where each side tried to outthink the other. And yet, the code breakers persisted, because failure was not an option. They worked in exhausting secrecy. Many never told their families what they did. Thousands of women operated machines, analyzed traffic, sorted messages, performed the hidden labor that made victory possible. The story is not only Turing's, it is the story of an army of minds, and as the war progressed, ultra-intelligence influenced campaigns across Europe and beyond. In North Africa, it helped the Allies anticipate Rommel's moves. In the Mediterranean, it guided naval battles. Before D-Day, deception operations combined with intelligence ensured the invasion had a chance to succeed. Enigma was everywhere, woven into the German war machine, and breaking it meant pulling apart the threads of Nazi strategy. By the end of the war, the impact was immense. Many experts estimate that cracking Enigma shortened the war by 2 to 4 years. That means millions of lives saved, cities spared, battles avoided. Yet when peace came, the world did not celebrate the code breakers. Their work remained classified. Alan Turing returned to a country that did not fully understand what it owed him. And in a tragic twist, the man who helped defeat Hitler would later be persecuted by his own government for his Lichtenstein, his identity. He was forced into humiliating punishment. His career was damaged. And in 1954, Alan Turing died, leaving behind a legacy that the world only truly recognized decades later. The Enigma story is therefore not only about war, but about secrecy, sacrifice, and the strange way history treats its heroes. A machine designed to protect tyranny became the catalyst for modern computing. The effort to break Enigma pushed technology forward, laying foundations for the digital world we live in today. And so, when you look at an Enigma machine sitting quietly in a museum, remember what it really represents. Not just a cipher device, but a battlefield of intelligence where the fate of nations depended on letters, rotors, and the minds of people working in silence. And this is only the beginning of the story, because the deeper you go into the world of Enigma, the more unbelievable secrets emerge. The moments when the code was almost lost, the operations that depended on a single decrypted message, the hidden battles that never appeared in history books, and the terrifying truth that the greatest war of the 20th century was fought not only with guns but with information itself. The story continues, because what most people imagine when they hear Enigma is a single breakthrough, a single heroic moment when the code was cracked and the Allies suddenly won. But the truth was far more dangerous, far more complicated, and far more fragile. Breaking Enigma was not a one-time victory. It was a ежедневная война, fought every sunrise, because every new day brought a new key, a new configuration, and the terrifying possibility that the Allies would go blind again. Inside Bletchley Park, the atmosphere was not one of celebration, but of relentless pressure. The codebreakers lived with a constant ticking clock. German messages poured in like a flood. Naval orders, Luftwaffe reports, troop movements, supply schedules. Each one was a locked door. And behind each locked door could be a convoy heading into an ambush, a city about to be bombed, or an invasion force preparing to strike. The people at Bletchley were not simply solving puzzles, they were racing against Smirt. Imagine sitting at a desk knowing that if you fail to find today's key, real ships will sink tonight. That was their reality. And the Germans, unaware that their secrets were being stolen, continued to trust Enigma like a religion. They believed it was mathematically impossible to break. They could not imagine that the Allies had built an entire intelligence universe around the machine. But Enigma's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. It depended on human operators. No matter how advanced the system, humans always leave fingerprints. They choose predictable phrases, they repeat habits, they make small mistakes. And those mistakes became the cracks that Bletchley exploited. One of the most important methods was the search for cribs, likely fragments of plain text hidden inside the ciphertext. German messages often contained routine content, weather reports, standard greetings, repeated military phrases. Even something as simple as Heil Hitler at the end of a transmission could provide a foothold. The bomb machines were designed to take these assumptions and test thousands of rotor settings at high speed. When the machine found a potential match, the analysts would jump into action, checking whether the result made sense. It was like listening for a single Pravilnian note inside a storm of noise, and when the note appeared, suddenly the entire message became clear. But the Germans were not static enemies. They adapted. They introduced new versions of Enigma, especially for the Navy, where security was even tighter. The naval Enigma was the most feared of all because it protected the U-boat war. German submarines were the predators of the Atlantic. They struck convoys at night, vanished into the deep, and left burning wrecks behind. Britain's survival depended on those convoys. Without imported food and fuel, the island could collapse. So the battle for naval Enigma was a battle for Britain's Dechania. At times, Bletchley Park could read U-boat messages clearly, guiding convoys away from danger. Then, suddenly, Germany would change procedures, add another rotor, tighten security, and the Allies would lose the ability to read anything. These moments were called blackouts, and they were terrifying. Imagine an intelligence service suddenly going blind while wolves circle in the dark ocean. In 1942, one such blackout nearly broke the Allies. German U-boats were sinking ships faster than they could be replaced. The Atlantic became a graveyard. The codebreakers worked desperately to regain access. And here is where another secret element of the Enigma War appears: capture missions. Allied forces sometimes risked everything to seize Enigma materials, because the machine itself was not enough. The real treasure was the codebooks, the daily keys, the instruction manuals. Without them, breaking the cipher became exponentially harder. There were daring raids at sea where sailors boarded damaged or abandoned German vessels, searching for Enigma documents before the enemy could unitarize them. One of the most famous examples involved U-boat captures that provided crucial code material. These were not glamorous Hollywood moments. They were frantic, deadly races against time, because German crews were trained to destroy everything if capture was imminent. Codebooks were weighted and thrown into the sea. Machines were smashed. Papers were burned. But sometimes, just sometimes, the Allies were fast enough, and a single recovered book could unlock weeks of intelligence. The War of Enigma was therefore fought on multiple fronts: in the quiet rooms of mathematicians, in the roaring halls of Bombay machines, and on the Krvavik decks of ships in the Atlantic. All of it was connected, and the secrecy was absolute. Ultra-intelligence was guarded like the crown jewels. Only a small circle of commanders knew its true source. Messages derived from Enigma were rewritten, disguised, and distributed carefully. The Allies even created fake razvedavatelny explanations to hide the truth. If a convoy was rerouted, they might claim it was due to aerial reconnaissance. If an attack was prevented, they might pretend a spy had reported it. Everything was done to ensure Germany would never suspect the impossible: that Enigma was broken. Because if the Germans realized the truth, they could redesign the system completely, and the Allies would lose one of their greatest advantages overnight. This created one of the most morally tajalik dilemmas of the war. There were times when Bletchley knew about German attacks, but could not fully stop them. Acting too directly would reveal the secret. So sometimes commanders had to choose: save everyone and risk losing Ultra forever, or sacrifice some to protect the source and save many more in the future. This is one of the darkest truths behind Enigma. Codebreaking was not chistaya heroism. It was strategy, cold calculation, and unbearable decisions. One of the most famous controversies involves the bombing of Coventry. Myths claim Churchill allowed the city to be bombed because of Ultra. Historians debate the details, but the broader reality remains. Intelligence is a weapon that must be used carefully, and its use can come with terrible costs. Meanwhile, Alan Turing and his colleagues continued pushing technology forward. The bomb machines grew larger, faster, more sophisticated. Teams of women operated them in shifts, listening to the relentless clicking, watching for stops that indicated a possible key. These women were essential, yet for decades their contributions were pachti invisible in history. Bletchley Park was a city of secrecy, employing thousands, yet bound by silence. Even after the war, many never spoke of what they had done. They simply returned to ordinary life, carrying extraordinary secrets. And Enigma's influence went beyond immediate military victories. The effort to mechanize code-breaking was one of the Kluchevich steps toward modern computing. Turing's work on logic and machines would later shape the digital age. In a strange way, a Nazi cipher machine helped accelerate the birth of the computer revolution. But as the Allies advanced toward victory, the Enigma War reached new levels. German communications were still vital. Even in the final months, Ultra provided insight into troop movements, defensive preparations, and the collapsing structure of the Reich. The codebreakers were still racing every day, because even a dying enemy could strike hard. And then, when the war finally ended in 1945, the world celebrated tanks, generals, and front-of-E heroes. But the secret war remained hidden. Enigma was still classified because Britain and America planned to use captured German cipher technology for their own intelligence purposes during the Cold War. The public did not know that World War II had been fought with equations and electromechanical machines behind closed doors. Alan Turing did not receive the glory he deserved. Instead, he faced tragedy. The same society he helped save turned against him. His persecution remains one of history's most painful ironies. Only decades later did governments apologize and priznat his contributions. Today, Enigma is remembered as one of the greatest intelligence stories ever told. It is the story of a machine designed to protect tyranny, defeated by human brilliance. It is the story of mathematicians who became warriors, of silent rooms that shaped global battles, of secrets so powerful they could not be spoken aloud. And the most haunting truth is this: while millions fought with rifles and bombs, the fate of the war often depended on a few people staring at meaningless letters, searching for patterns, searching for a key, searching for a way to see through the darkness. And in the next part of this story, we will go deeper into the most dramatic moments of the Enigma War, the operations that almost failed, the incredible breakthroughs that saved entire fleets, and the hidden battles where one decrypted message could change history in a single night. And to truly understand how dramatic the Enigma struggle became, you have to picture the constant tension inside Bletchley Park as the war intensified. This was not a comfortable academic environment. It was a pressure cooker of exhaustion, secrecy, and fear. People worked long shifts, often sleeping only a few hours before returning to the machines. The halls were filled with the sound of typewriters, clacking relays, whispered discussions, and the endless movement of intercepted messages arriving from listening stations around Britain. Every envelope carried the possibility of Spacini or catastrophe. Some days, the codebreakers succeeded quickly, and the flow of German secrets opened like a door. Other days, nothing worked. The bomb machines ran for hours without results.